After 73 lesions were discovered during her own battle with endometriosis, Nicole Notar founded Endo Excision for All, grateful for her care but outraged that so many women can't access the same treatment. Now, let me introduce for you the one and only Nicole Notar.
Thank you for having me here. Like you said, my name's Nicole Notar. I'm the founder of Endometriosis Excision for All. I have endometriosis, and like for most women, it was a giant process to get there and to get that diagnosis. And part of that being access to care, the other just being doctors who are not gynecologists that were not knowledgeable on it, just keep redirecting you to different specialists. So eventually got there 15 years later, was able to access a proper endometriosis excision specialist. I had to trade my 401(k) to do it, but was worth every penny. And through that process and getting the relief I did from that, getting access to care, started my foundation, Endo Excision for All, to help other women access care, considering our financial barriers, and also work on the policy side with lawmakers in the US to um, work with CMS reimbursements so that we ideally don't have to exist anymore, and CMS can just pay out more for the excision specialists so that they aren't forced at a network, and the financial responsibility will no longer fall on us as patients, but on the insurance companies to just pay out more to the excision specialists.
Oh, that's really great that you use your experience to build something that can help other people too. Is there anything that you would recommend for anyone else that is starting off and wanting to become an advocate?
Basically, reaching out to any endometriosis foundation that you see. So because I'm in New Jersey, it's easy for me to work with the Endo Found of America since they're in New York. So they're the first foundation I started working with. But I also reached out to like Endo Found of Houston and like you guys and of Canada. So just to just reach out to any, like, use social media as a positive in this sense, and its ability to connect you to other women with endo, those who have support groups. I'm finding in a lot of cities there's women that are starting accounts that like have endo and they're looking for communities. So they'll just do endo in NYC or endo in Chicago. Um, there's with one girl I know in Las Vegas. So it's multiple people are starting their own little groups. So you just have to kind of search it and find it. And social media is a great place to start. So like I said, I was working with Endo Fund America after my surgery and then reaching out to all those other foundations. And I found the missing puzzle piece was helping women access care. So like all the foundations are phenomenal for research. They're phenomenal for support. They're phenomenal for education around excision versus ablation. But the missing puzzle piece was helping women find the right doctors and not only find them, but pay for them until all the policy stuff works out and we can actually get insurance to cover it fully. So that's how I'm like, this is the missing puzzle piece. Someone has to do it, so I might as well start it then, and try. And that was a little over a year ago now, and I'm happy I did it because it's growing faster than I expected it to, but that just shows the need. And it's shown me too just how, because when I went for the excision specialist, I didn't even realize the difference between ablation and excision. I just None of the gynecologists that would have performed an ablation would even operate on me. So that was a blessing in disguise because then it forced me to go out of network to find somebody to operate on me. But that being said, I didn't know the difference between ablation and excision. So the fact that I was able to research it, I had it like, struggling with it for 15 years, and I still couldn't just find online like the difference between ablation and excision, that's not like knowledgeable resources out there, that like easy to find resources. Um, so even like that, just putting resources out there, finding them, sharing them, that definitely, like, if you're a patient struggling, you want to get involved with advocacy, just to find other foundations. Be like, how can I support you? Can I work on a resource with you? Can I help get this resource out there and share it with everybody? Because you never know who's struggling with endo and just doesn't know it.
Did you have any trouble when you first started off? Were there any difficulties getting it off the ground, or did everything go smoothly?
The largest issue, and still is an issue today, is because so many people don't know the difference between ablation and excision. We'll have people reach out to us on social media or our website and be like, my surgery was covered. Like, this is a scam. There's an insurance code for excision. You just have to ask your doctor for it. And that they're just not knowledgeable. So it's like trying to explain this to someone who's already on the defense and especially as having endo, like we've all been burnt so many times by doctors. We've all been gaslit. We've all been lied to. So um, obviously we're all on the defense. So trying to have a conversation with someone who's accusing you of being a scam, but is simply just not knowledgeable on the insurance aspect. Like there technically is an insurance code for excision in the US, but it's the same code as ablation. So that's our main issue is that there's not a separate code for excision. So it's the same, it's CPT code 58662. And the payouts for it to the surgeons are like $70 to $100. So the gynecologist doing an ablation, they don't care. They make their money delivering babies and doing everything else. And the average ablation is like an hour anyway. The excision specialist, they can't run their practice doing on an average 6 to 8 hour surgery for excision and getting $100 for it. So it forces them out of network. So yes, there is a code, but you can't use it because the doctors who know what they're doing in excision are forced out of network. So there's a lot of women too who go to gynecologists and get an ablation done, but the a gynecologist will say, "Yeah, we're going to do excision as well." So they think they're having excision surgery, but they're mostly getting ablation. Say they have 15 lesions, the gynecologist will excise the two easy ones that are like based just on top, and then ablate all the rest. So they really got an ablation, and that's why it was covered because it was in a quick hour and it was an ablation, the doctor covered it, or the insurance, paid them out enough, so they were able to go to an in-network doctor. But that's where it gets like really fuzzy because for someone to say there's already a code for excision is technically true. It's just because of the politics of it all, the insurance payouts and CMS, they can't use it. So we need another one just for excision. It was like explaining that whole process.
We don't have like the same process that you guys do, but we have very similar problems where the doctors, whether they're doing like a 1 hour endo surgery or an 8 hour endo surgery, they won't get paid more for doing the longer surgery. They just get paid the same no matter how complicated it is. So a lot of the really complicated cases get left where the doctors just don't want to take those cases and because they can take a lot more patients otherwise if they're taking the easier ones and they'll get more pay. So everyone else kind of gets left behind. But our biggest problem in Canada is that we don't have enough doctors here, which is why we need your help. Do you know any doctors that the Canadian patients can go see that might be accepting Canadians in the US? Because we do know a few, but like only a handful maybe that we have on our website. I'm not sure if you know anyone else.
Yeah, there's Dr. Laura Liu. She trained under Dr. Seshkin actually, and she operates on. I think there was a couple. Was it like 2 months ago? She had three surgeries, and they're all Canadian. So I know she definitely operates. And Dr. Goldstein's another one. She used to work with Dr. Seshkin. Dr. Vidali, based in New York, but he just started that SE program. So he's now like branching and having other surgeons that are in different states. So like Dr. Mallory, I'm going to say her name wrong, Steparich, I think. Um, she's in Southern California, but she's like technically part of that practice. So that's growing and expanding. I know there are other ones. I just don't know their name off the top of my head. Um, but they definitely take anybody from out of the country. It's just the payment. Like it's you guys would basically be paying the same as an out of network American would.
Yeah. And Dr. Vidali actually posted recently, it wouldn't be him, it would be a team that he trained, I believe, in Florida for about 15,000 US, I think, that they are doing endo surgeries and they're booking for them. I don't know if it's only maybe for Canadian patients, but it was advertised to us for anyone wanting to book with him. Well, not with him, with his team, because he is
Yeah.
already overbooked because everybody wants him,
Yeah.
obviously. When you had your first surgery, how old were you? Were you like in your early 20s? Like it was recent?
26. So it was
26?
almost 3 years ago now. But yeah, 26. And basically like my issues were primarily growing up gastro, and then I just kind of dealt with my period as it happened, not realizing that the two were connected. So I was out of school because the gastro stuff was every day. So I was in and out of high school because I would get sick every morning and couldn't eat without getting sick. So then even like if I got sick going to school, then I would have lunch, I get sick. And then was always in the ER for like pain in my side and everything would come back negative. So then they're like, you just go back to school. Like this has to be anxiety. And then I mean, obviously you don't feel good that causes anxiety, but the anxiety was not the main issue. Because every physical test came back as negative, then they tossed me on Zoloft and Lexapro, and turns out I'm allergic to SSRIs. And then this other medication, Elavil, which is like it's like a nerve type of thing. But I was on that for a little bit and I didn't have any symptoms like I did on Zoloft or Lexapro, but I was just like a zombie. And then I started getting really bad numbness in my face and like passing out. So then I stopped taking that. But then the other issue with that is like on all these drugs, the research is done on men that are like 40 and 260 pounds, and then it's the same dosage for a 16-year-old who's 120 pounds. So it's like that's a whole other issue, but that was the main thing. Or that's what they thought it was with the SSRIs, that they like lowered the dose, but then that didn't help, and I was allergic. So just like the lack of research is a whole other thing. But then the stomach issues were every day,
Every
so
day when it comes to women, right?
ridiculous. And then even the stomach issues, like I was very lucky. I had a very good pediatric gastro. So she tried everything and she did everything she had to do in terms of like paperwork and stuff to keep me in school, even though it's technically truant and all this stuff. So I was able to graduate on time still, but there was still never the connection of like maybe your gastro symptoms are related to your period symptoms. Maybe there's some correlation here. And it was always treated as two separate things. So eventually I was put on a medication, an antispasmodic called hyoscine that I was able to take that, eat 30 minutes later and not get sick. Restricted diet, but there were some things I could eat. And then that got me through the rest of school. And then I just kind of dealt with my periods as I did. And then as like I got to college, my periods would become, instead of being down for the count for 1 day, it was 2 days. And then it was, I have to take off work. And then I was like, can work from home. And then a year later, I was even working from home. I have to take off because the pain was so bad. I was vomiting, passing out, and couldn't even work from bed. And it just kept getting longer. And then once they hit, or the PMS would be so bad that I was taking off work before my period even hit. Um, so then at a point, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. All my gynecologists had basically fear mongered me out of surgery. Again, thank God, because they would have done ablations, but I was terrified of getting surgery. And then I hit a point where I'm like, I can't live like this anymore. I have to do it. So then I found the doctor at a network and then had surgery done. They booked, and this is another thing too about us endo ladies is the way that we describe our symptoms, because we get so used to them that then they had booked me as the first surgery, thinking I'd be like quick in and out. It was supposed to be 3 hours in and out same day. It ended up being 7 hours. And then the two girls after me had to get pushed to the next day and ended up, instead of being home the same day, in the hospital for 3 nights. And then because I live in New Jersey, my surgery was in New York, because of all the gastro stuff that had like cut into my colon, they didn't want me leaving like the island of Manhattan for a couple days, even though I was out of the hospital. I ended up not coming home for a week. And that just like plays into how we get so used to our symptoms that the way I was relaying them to the doctor, they're like, oh, this is going to be a minimal case.
So when I read your story, I believe that you had, was it like several adhesions or several lesions that they found? Was it over 70 or something?
Yeah, 73, and they all tested positive. And I remember Dr. Sechkin called me when the pathology came back and he's like, how did you live like this? Like, how? I'm like, well, what was the other option? And you get used to it because it's not like 0 to 100. It like gets worse over time. And he's like, that's the most amount of lesions I've ever seen. I'm like, it's so like it sucks to have like obviously like as you know, it sucks to have such advanced stage disease, but at the same time it was so validating. Like I knew it. I knew it was really bad. I knew there was going to be a lot in there. I knew it was going to be multiple organs, and everybody told me I was crazy, and everybody said it was in my head. And I just want to like take my pathology report and go to high school and like toss in everybody's faces and like go to my college and put it in all my professors' faces that told me to take a Tylenol.
Did they like let you know that there's a chance of it coming back? But I guess because yours was more recent also that they probably know more. And plus you were at a really great doctor also. But did they like
Yeah,
let you know that it could come back and like what to look out for and continue seeing you even afterwards?
yeah, so even and this I feel like is a tricky question too with a lot of people because there's so many top excision specialists that are like, you had surgery with me, you're fine, you're good. Like it's not gonna come back. And I mean, it has to go like case by case. And I feel like patients just don't see that it's case by case, and they're like, oh, this doctor, if you have surgery, this doctor, your endo is not going to come back. And that's just not true. Like it's body to body. So I was told it's not a matter of when or if surgery too is happening, it's a matter of when. So that like I at least I was told up front, like it's gonna come back. We're gonna do whatever we can with different options to prolong it from growing so fast. Um, but that it was so like to have 73 lesions at 26 years old, that like it's a fast grower. Like it's like we got it all, but or at least they got whatever they could see. But they're like it's definitely it's strong in your body.
I'm glad you had a really good doctor so that you can make sure it all got removed. I know there's still a chance of it always coming back, but having like one of the best surgeons in the world at least lowers that chance big time.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you think you wish your younger self knew or that you would recommend to anyone that is just starting off or not diagnosed yet, but waiting to find out if they have endo?
That friends in your life who, or even family, like anybody in your life, if you're honest with them and they get upset with you for canceling um, or just don't try to understand and or only understanding when it's convenient to them, then those people are not meant to be in your life. And that was hard. That's one of the hardest things I think for me with growing up was, or up until getting a diagnosis, was I always kind of felt like a fraud. So I'd be like, I think I have endo, but I'm not sure. And this is why I'm canceling last minute all the time because you do like with endometriosis, like you can be fine one second and not the next. And like it's hard to understand, especially when you're saying, I think I have this instead of I have this. But it doesn't matter. If you're sick, you're sick. And that's something I um didn't want to accept because I wanted to be like, oh, this is my best friend since kindergarten. Like, I don't want endo to get in the way, but at the same time, like if that person was really your friend, they would understand and be like, how can I help you? I know I can't take the disease away, but like be more supportive. And it is really hard to find a good support system with endo. And if you can't find that with friends and family, especially when you don't have the diagnosis yet, I feel like a lot of people come around when you actually have a diagnosis, but if you're still struggling with just the horrible symptoms and not having an answer yet, um, to just reach out to like endo community. There's such an endo community online to just reach out to any support group, any foundation. Just there's a lot of like endo influencer girls. Like reach out to them. Like just reach out to everybody you can. Try to find the community of the people that get it, and just so that you have that connection, even if it might not be in person. Have a virtual support group or just be able to message with people that understand and are going through the same thing as you.
Totally, it can help a lot so that you feel like you're not alone. Because I know growing up, I'm like, why is it only me that has this? How come I don't know anyone else? Like you
Yeah.
feel like kind of like isolated from everyone, and like no one else would understand. Because like growing up, if they're not experiencing it, there's no way they could understand, especially when like you're teenagers and just not understanding. And even after like having a diagnosis, I still found it hard for many people to understand. And what I hear in the support group a lot is like people tell me that their coworkers or family will tell them that they have to suck it up, that they're not pushing through it enough, or they're being babies about it, and they just really don't understand that it's not like a tummy ache. It's a lot more than that. Like you can feel like you're being stabbed, or like your insides are being twisted, or like you're in labor. Like it can be really intense, and people just don't get that. Between going through all that and like doing all your advocacy work, how do you handle everything mentally with all the gaslighting and all the symptoms and everything with the medications, all the symptoms from those? Because that can be sometimes even worse than your normal symptoms from the illness.
Yeah, I went on estrogen, low dose estrogen pill after my surgery. And I had never been on hormonal birth control prior to that because I wasn't against it, but I just couldn't understand the way that the gynos would give it out like candy. And I'm like, I just need more of a reason. Like you just need to give me more like concrete reason of why you're giving this to me and like side effects you expect and how those would be handled. And the only responses I would get is, well, we just give it to you. And if you have side effects, like we'll deal with it then like basically trial and error. I'm like, that's not a good enough answer for me. So I never took it. But then after surgery, like I trust my doctor. So I tried it. And the first few months I had really horrible, physically I felt great, but mentally horrible, horrible side effects. So I I was like, okay, I'm rather, honestly, I'd rather deal with the physical pain than the mental. So I went off of that. And then I was okay and I was scared to go on anything else. So I tried the natural route of managing my hormones, and it didn't work as well as I thought it would. So I think the disease is just too strong, and I'm it grew back. So I'm on progestin now. And that one it's been a lot better. I've been on it now for like 3 months. Um, but definitely like the still get like anxious. Like I mean, I like to go out and socialize and have a cocktail, and I'm learning that at least for me, progestin drinking triggers anxiety. So that's something I'm adjusting to is having to deal with my social anxiety more without a cocktail. Um, and even just like having to take the pill every day at 10 o'clock. And but for this personally, it takes away my period. And for me, my period is the root of majority of my pain. So it's great in that aspect. So it's worth all the any other stuff. But the side effects starting it was like basically puts your blood work, at least for me, all my hormones are now postmenopausal. So it was dealing with like the hot flashes and brain fog and all like menopausal symptoms. And I mean, I'm like through it now. I'm in like the post stage, but that was horrible. I was like, like beyond exhausted, forgetting everything. Um, that was a lot, but that's something to your point about dealing with it. Initially after my surgery, especially once I wasn't on any hormones, I just dove into my foundation. I'm like, okay, this is help like to be that person for other women that I wish I had for myself, kind of healing that inner wound. Um, but it only does so much. So I definitely am seeing even in my own relationship, like romantic relationship, family relationships, work relationships, like just different trigger words and different things of like you're being gaslit your whole life. So now if somebody says, all that you're just thinking too much. I lose my shit. If somebody says, get out of your head, like don't worry about it, I lose my shit. So um, different things like that. I just started individual therapy with a woman who actually has endometriosis, so she gets it to kind of work on undoing all that so that I'm not triggered by so many things and getting to the root of all the trauma that happens and the whole journey of getting a diagnosis. I thought the diagnosis would have fixed it, and it definitely didn't.
Is therapy something you think you'd recommend for everyone suffering with endo to help us
100%.
like navigate through everything in life with it?
100%. I wish I did it soon. I didn't think I needed it. And I've been in therapy my whole life. I'm not like anti-therapy at all. I'm in it for like family reasons, like couples therapy, things like that. But I was like, no, I got a handle on this. I got my diagnosis, I know what I'm dealing with. Yeah, I was gaslit my whole life, but like you get used to it. Now I know that I was right and I'm good. But that's not, now I'm seeing how it kind of is all coming out in other parts of life. So, um, but trying to deal with all that now.
But like you just said, there still is so much of the like mental aspect of it that's affecting everybody with the disease, like from friends, family, coworkers not getting it, or doctors not believing us. That's probably the hardest thing is not being believed, I would think, when you're sick. I don't know about you, but
Yeah, and especially like this is the part of how it can come out of nowhere. Like you're fine 1 second and then not the next. And the way
yeah.
that people can like weaponize that against you. And it's like you were fine yesterday, all of a sudden now you're not. Like you just don't want to come. Like just be honest, say you don't want to come. It's like, no, there's nothing I want more than to not be sick and come. Energy aspect of if you do something on a Thursday, then like Friday you might not have the energy because like you overdid it, you overpushed, and it's like you did it to get to whatever you was the higher priority that time. But then it's like you might have to miss the next thing, and like that's it's like you have to prioritize the opportunities in life to be like, okay, well this what I have on Tuesday is more important than what I have on Monday, so I guess I'll skip the Monday thing so I can make sure I'm okay for Tuesday. And like other people are
Mhm.
just doing everything in life. And you're like trying
I
to prioritize, even though it's all important, or maybe whatever's important to somebody's life is important to somebody's life. But to have to decide that and not just be able to live your life and do your thing, um, and then explain it to people when you're already struggling with having to do that.
definitely. Here we have a lot of trouble with workplaces being understanding. I hear a lot of people say that they lose their job because they miss too much work because of being in pain. Is this something that you think happens a lot over in the US too?
Yeah, because you're not reliable. So that, I mean, I made sure I only applied to jobs that were remote because I knew I would need it. Um, but that's something that we're working on because in the US we have ADA and FMLA, the American Disabilities Act, and FMLA is basically getting disability if you can't work. So chronic migraines are on it. A bunch of other things are on it. Crohn's disease is on it, but endometriosis isn't. So that's something that we're working on now with different lobbyists in DC and different healthcare attorneys to get endometriosis on ADA and FMLA. So, and to get accommodations, like there should bathrooms. You should be able to have access to a bathroom at your workplace. Like this, the heating pad, be able to keep your medicine somewhere. The amount of office buildings that are like have such a tight if it's an anti-drug policy and then you have to go through all these loops to bring in your drugs that you like medication that you need. I know that's an issue with I've met several women that have that work in some corporate office building and they can't bring their meds in. They have to like get
Wow.
all this documentation from the doctors that it's nothing's addictive and like it's this whole process. And if you're diagnosed with endo, like you need to have that accommodation that you can get through with just whatever you need. Bathroom access being number one, or at least top of my head, that's the number one. There's a lot more. Um, Being able to work from home if you need it, if you're in office and you're whatever you do for a living allows you to do that. Or if you don't have if you don't have the flexibility to be able to work from home, to have a job where you can't be penalized, like to have an accommodation where um, and you go into work, and then if you need to take a break, you can take a break and lay down for 20 minutes, or sit down for 20 minutes, or just go to your car for 20 minutes and um, have someone cover you during that time. So just I know from the employer aspect, I totally understand that you have to have reliable employees, but there's definitely accommodations that can come with that when you have a full team in an office or at whatever the job may be. There's a full team there. If someone needs to take a break for 20 minutes, somebody else should be able to jump in and handle whatever for that time period to give that person the access to go to the bathroom for 20 minutes and take a Motrin and let it kick in, or go lay down with their heating pad and recharge, um, or go on disability if it's that bad that you can't work. Um, to have that option is, I mean, chronic migraine is a symptom of endometriosis. So how is that on our disability list, but not endometriosis, which can cause if you don't have a pathology report, if you don't have a diagnosis, right? Like your symptoms can be absolutely horrible for 15 years before, 20 years before you get a diagnosis. So trying to work that verbiage if you have endometriosis symptoms or the possibility of endometriosis and what that looks like in terms of getting a diagnosis of a maybe, to prove that you need accommodations, and then people follow you around. So like that's going to the endo aspect of maybe only needing accommodations when you have a period, or maybe only needing accommodations when you're ovulating, or you just had a surgery, you need accommodations for that time period. Where when you're on disability, it's kind of like there's no it's either you're on disability fully or you're not. The issue with the endo, it's like so you get accepted and then say you're on full disability. So they send people out to follow you and monitor, make sure like if you're active and living your life and going places, and they'll be like there's no reason why you can't work. Like we see you going, like they take pictures of you, and like people have been in court where they like had no idea somebody was following them. But it's disability.
Never thought of that for illnesses because it's all through insurance down there too. Oh my goodness, that's
If you
horrible.
have partial disability, then it's like, okay, well, they can be following you. Like they'll have pictures of you getting out your car and going to the gym, and then they'll be like, why can't you work? And then you have to prove that it's part-time and not half the.
Yet if
It's
you're sick, they say you
complicated.
should try to exercise too because it can help your illness, but then they penalize you for it, right? Yeah.
So tailored to the individual, and then also tailored to who from disability is looking at your case. Like some people are more understanding than others, especially with like the insurance approvals. I remember when I was going through, I did like a gap insurance thing to try to get the money reimbursed, and they were honest with me, and they're just like, you're basically just waiting to get a nice nurse. Like you have to write a compelling story, attach your pathology report, and just wait for a nice nurse that works the insurance and is going through your case to just be like, you know what, I'm gonna let this girl get the approval. Like it's there's not that even that many guidelines, like they just choose who they want.
I can totally understand that. That's exactly how it is here, basically. Have you, like, I know we haven't talked about this together. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I've been reading recently about menstrual leave in other countries. I know Spain has it and South Korea, and I think maybe China. Maybe there's like five or six countries that have it. Do you think that that's something that would be like beneficial in the US and in Canada?
Like we're trying to catch up to men in the world, right? Like we want to show that we're equal or even better. So like that, if we're taking, if we need menstrual leave, then a man can come in and say, see, you can't do the job as good as me because you have to take off 3 days a week or 3 days a month. I'm like, I don't have to. So I can see it being like weaponized by that, but at the same time, we need to sit in reality and people get sick. So this is a sickness. This isn't laziness. And if you need this, then you need this. And the whole point is to to be able to work better, to have this accommodation so that you can work and still contribute to a company or business or a work or a school institution or whatever it may be that you're doing with your life. So that's the other thing we're trying to do with our bill too, for the ADA and FMLA is to prove that these accommodations will be economical in the end, that women in the workplace are needed. And this is why, and if we just have these accommodations for those who need it, then it'll contribute positively to our economy. But I do totally get how, I mean, I would lose my mind on a man who would say, um, see, I don't need 3 days off a month, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's like they just don't get it. We have to do what's best for us. And if you need it, you need it. It's not for every woman to use. Obviously, if you don't get period pain and you don't need it, then you're not going to use it. But if you, it's a sickness. People are going on menstrual leave because they're sick on their period, not because they're lazy or they don't feel like going to work that day. It's a sickness. You are ill, you need that accommodation. Anybody that disagrees and wants to turn it into like now a man can weaponize it and say that women aren't as strong. I mean, there's a million arguments on why we're stronger in other ways. So it's not, it's, it should be, there's more positives to it than the negatives, I think.
And even if we need 2 or 3 days off in a month, we still might be able to get more work done in the month than they would. Like,
Yeah,
and with them having that extra 2, 3 days,
exactly.
right? Women are better workers. But I was reading that a lot of the groups in these countries, like when this first happened, that they thought the same thing, that maybe a lot of companies wouldn't want to hire women because they would have to pay for them to take time off. But that actually wasn't the case. They found that the hirings were still the same and that not a lot of people actually used it. Maybe people were afraid to, but it was a very small percentage. And like you said, if you really need it, like I can understand maybe if you're able to push it through and you're like you want to take time off because you're not feeling good, but you're nervous too, so you push yourself to go to work. But sometimes like you can't push yourself. Sometimes you're fainting or vomiting or bleeding through your clothes and you just can't leave your house. So like it's really good to have that.
What do we always call it? The worst club with the best people.
Exactly. I know because we have the most empathy because we're understanding and we know suffering.
And that, just what you were saying before about like not having to, um, if you need it, you need it. And people saying about what companies were using or the hiring process, right? If you're sick and like you're taking, if you're vomiting and passing out, like you can't physically drive to work, so you're taking a sick day anyway. So like that's the other part of it. If you have that option with work, then you're taking the sick day. So this is just to put into place, at least in my mind, that you can't get fired for it, or if you have to go over a sick day by 1 or 2. Like there's to remove that anxiety. Like my last job that I was working in office for. There was a huge presentation. I was pretty new at the company and I got my period that morning. And there's no shot. I was vomiting. How am I going to drive? Like it's no, you can't. Like they don't want me standing there vomiting in the middle of everybody as I'm like reading a presentation. They wouldn't want you there if they saw you at home, right? Um, but I had to email my boss and I was a nervous wreck. That probably made me even more nauseous and throw up more because I was like, what if I get fired now and I'm new and they don't get it? Like, and now I have to explain my health issues, super personal, to a brand new male boss. But I'm like, I just gotta shoot my shot. I can't just be like, hey, I'm sick today. It's gonna be like, what the heck? Like, I had to explain in depth. And luckily they're understanding and my other colleague kind of filled in. But just that anxiety of like I'm gonna get fired because I'm taking off because I'm vomiting all day, that can't that can't be. So like that the whole menstrual leave, like that, we need something in there to, so that there's no fear of getting fired if you need a day or two off. And then if you obviously if you need the whole month off, that's where you get into like the disability conversation because like you do employers do need reliable workers. So I get the fine line there. But if it's a period issue and it's your menstrual cycle that you need off for, need accommodations for, there should be no shame around it. And you should not have to worry about losing your job for 2 days a month.
Yeah, like some countries that implemented this have where you might get extra breaks or you might get 1 or 2 days. I know one country had 3 to 5 days, and one country had unlimited, which was crazy, like unlimited, which is helpful. Like if you have adenomyosis and heavy bleeding, like for like a month straight and you can't get out of bed. But I guess here in Canada, that's when disability would come into effect. I think on average, maybe 3 to 5 days or like 5 to 8 days, 7 days, like something about the length of a period. I think that would be a good amount of time if there was menstrual leave and you needed to use it to have that available, at least in our country, since we have disability, if it is something more than just that, like the period. Or
That
even like not just your period, some people have it during or ovulation, right? So a lot of people have ovulation pain. They get like pain with their ovaries when they're releasing an egg. Like it can be really painful, some people say.
release the stigma, um, but we really do need whatever the accommodations that we need just need to be put into order. And then whoever has anything judgmental or nasty to say about them just doesn't get it, and then just need to block them out. Easier to say than done.
Yeah, seriously. Speaking of stigma, we recently did a special virtual stream of Below the Belt with our support group, and it's like really beneficial, I think, because it helps like the community like feel like we're not alone, like there are other people out there, and that they're trying to promote like more awareness of it. So like there are people doing things out there in the world. What do you think of films like Below the Belt? Did you watch it as well?
I did. I cried. I sent it to everybody I knew. Um, but I mean, I love that it told four different stories, that it touched on fertility, it touched on the struggle with Jenna trying to find thoracic, it touched on the financial aspects, but that the one girl, her father had to get a second mortgage on the house, or get a line of credit to pay for the second surgery, and I forgot the other story, but um, I love that it showed different parts of it. I do with the name. Below the belt, I'm not a fan of just because it makes it like a menstrual disease. I know we're talking all about periods, but um, it just makes it like such a menstrual disease below the belt where it leaves out all the women with thoracic. And I feel like that's where endo gets a lot of judgment and lack of understanding is the amount of people who don't understand that there's women who their diaphragm collapse, so like the lungs collapse because they have diaphragmatic endo or they have it on their sciatic nerve and they can't walk, and how serious that endo can get beyond periods. That they, I wish the name was a little different.
Yeah, but I get what you mean. I've seen people in our group also, like in the support group, say that they wished it was not just below the belt, but above the belt too, because like you said, you can have thoracic or like I have diaphragmatic endo, and so you can have it in higher places. Like I know people can have it in the brain, right? Your skin, your eye. So like you said, it's not just below the belt, and that's kind of limiting it. But it's a nice title, and at least they're doing something to get the info out there. I
Yeah,
remember learning it first as a menstrual illness. A lot of people still think of it only as a menstrual illness and not like a systemic disease like it really is.
yeah, like it was great that they outlined four different women's experiences um and especially um the girl who the dad had to like refinance the house like just to afford the surgery, and how they had to travel for it, and like how hard it is to find care, um just so that people can understand that if they can't understand the whole that is outside the menstrual cycle, like that or it's not just about the menstrual cycle, at least pushing that narrative about how access to care is so difficult to find. I love that she highlighted that.
Yeah, I guess no matter what country you're in, access to care is hard because, like, even though you guys have a lot of great doctors, without insurance covering it, it can be really hard to access that care because it's just so expensive. It's probably like almost as much as getting a condo or something. Like just
Yeah,
to have surgery, it's so expensive.
we're having to go out of state, like especially like the US being so wet. So if you're in Louisiana, like you're to find an excision specialist, you're flying to New York or California or Texas or Florida, Washington, D.C. Um, there's nobody, I don't know anybody in Louisiana. I'm always looking, like I'm trying to find one doctor in each state. But there's like little deserts, excision specialist deserts. So even like being in the US, on top of the financial strain of the surgery itself, then it's like, okay, I have to fly to California from Missouri. That's going to cost another thousand. And it's like just keeps adding up. Then a hotel or an Airbnb, whatever you do.
I know. That's actually why I chose to go to California. Had the option to go to your doctor in New York, which, like, I know I spoke to both of them. And they both offered to operate, and they're both very sweet. But if I went to New York, I'd have to get a hotel, and I had family in California, so I went there. But it was really nice that they both offered to do the surgeries, and that, like, knowing that there was those two great doctors. My only regret was not going faster, which is why I always want to talk about the US doctors because our wait time here for surgery is 3 years for gynecological surgeries. And if you're suffering, 3 years is a lot. And especially because the disease will keep growing and spreading, and you don't know how much, like, you could lose a kidney, you could lose your appendix, like, you don't know what's going to happen in those 3 years while you wait. So, for people that have the option or are willing to maybe take on the debt and pay it off, like with how Dr. Vidali has that deal in Florida, I know not everyone has deals, but a lot of people have also like payment options also. So we just try to get the word out so people know that there is things like outside of our country, there are other options, not just suffering for years and years.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up because that's something that obviously you can't pay for every woman's surgery. And even like we're a new foundation, so we even haven't fundraised enough to pay for full surgery. We've just been able to help fund several consultations to get through the door. But then, or like MRIs or different tests, things like that. But to do a full surgery, that's a lot. But that's work with patients too to help them figure out like, okay, you have what credit cards do you have? What are your limits? You can split between these two cards or apply for this new card that has 0% interest for 12 months. And then you can pay off this much a month and then transfer money from this card to another card and not get penalized for it or not pay as much interest over time. And basically like do your own payment form of a payment plan if your doctor, the doctor doing your surgery doesn't offer it. So different things like that. And then being a for life thing, then after surgery, then learning like opening up an HSA account if your company offers that so that you can put money into there and then tax free and out of it when you
So you
need.
help patients with all of this like process?
Yeah, that's because we don't have the money to pay for full surgeries
But that's
yet.
still a lot of help that you're helping like people. That's a lot of work going through that whole process and all that information, especially when you're in a lot of pain and you're like it's hard to concentrate and think.
Yeah.
Having someone like to help give you that information instead of having to try to search for it, like it can be a lot of help. Also, because when you search for things, you might doubt yourself and not know if like what you
Yeah.
have is the correct information. So like having that confirmation is probably a lot of help and helps like relieve stress, I'm sure, for people too. Oh, they're so lucky to have you.
And it also thank you. And then also just makes it like less overwhelming because when you're looking at a $15,000 bill or $20,000 bill or some doctors a $30,000 bill, it's like I can never pay this off. But if you like sit and I'm like I said, drain my 401k. So if like you have money put away, maybe pull a little bit from here, or if you have don't have any money put away, then we're looking at how many credit cards you can get and separate the two or move some over. And then, okay, how much can you afford to pay monthly? Try to get that down and then transfer to this other card. It's a process, but when you like break it down into monthly payments or split up between different cards and then fewer smaller payments, like um it becomes a little bit less overwhelming when you're looking at it over time versus just one flat bill.
Yeah, I bet. Like compared to like 15 or 20,000, having it broken down month by month, that would feel like a lot less scary seeing that like that big total in the end.
Still a lot. We need to get rid of that. We need full insurance coverage, but until we get there, and also like what you guys do with the pediatric side, that's something too that I know EndoFound's focusing more on is getting into getting people to understand that endo, like there's no such thing as you're too young for endo. Like that's doesn't exist. It's any age, like you said, prior to a cycle start, like prior to period starting, and just like the whole pediatric aspect. So when it comes to accommodations at work too, like we need accommodations in schools, and and for endometriosis or symptoms like endometriosis, especially if your mom has it, and then like all these things that feed into it probably being endo, that you need the accommodations because you have the symptoms, not the pathology report yet.
Yeah, here it's a slow process. It's really important, I think, to go into the schools where the kids are learning about health and learning about periods. And that's like when they're first getting their first periods, they're usually like either ending elementary school or beginning like high school, like 13, even like 10, some of the kids. And it's just so important that they know like what a healthy period is, not just endo, but like PCOS or any other gynecological condition. But having endo affect like 1 in 10 and maybe even more, we only know 1 in 10 like that have been, like confirmed. But
Yes.
doctors believe that number is higher because a lot of women like don't come forward or don't know they have the disease or they have silent endo. But yeah, we have like pilot projects that we try to get to all our different school boards so that they can like give out pamphlets so that the kids can take it home and give it to their parents so that they can read what the disease is. So as their kids are growing up, they can look out for those symptoms because if the parents don't know what it is and if the doctor doesn't, because a lot of doctors, like especially just family doctors or things like that, they might not know what all the signs are to look for. And then that's why it takes 10 years to get help because like no one knows where to send you. They might send you like for a doctor for IBS, like for gastro doctor. A lot of women get diagnosed first with IBS before they get diagnosed with endo. Yeah, I know, me too. I feel like almost everybody. But yeah, and they don't tell you that that can be like in the beginning that that can also be signs of endo, like having gastro issues. So we just try to get all the pamphlets out, and we try to also get it out in doctor offices and posters so that the doctors and like all the parents can see it when they're sitting there in the waiting room waiting to get called in, and it displays exactly in large print like a girl in pain and like what she's going through and why, and it helps doctors to see this like the symptoms every day on the list too so that they know what to look out for when they see their patients because too many of them, it's ridiculous, too many of them don't know what to look out for and they don't know to send someone to a gynecologist, which I can't believe in like 2025 that they still don't know what the symptoms are to look out for endo. I guess they just don't teach it in medical school, or if they do, I think I've heard it's like an hour lecture maybe on it, and that's it.
Yeah, it's like a class, and then moving on
Yeah.
to the part. I feel like it would be helpful if, I mean, this is like a long term, I don't think it would ever happen, but under obstetric, like OBGYN, there's just so much. Like it's understandable that they don't have the time to learn, especially excision in OB-GYN school, and they only have time to learn ablation, I feel like it would make sense to split the specialties and either when you're choosing what you want to go into, you choose OB or you choose gynecology so that the gynecologists have time to learn how to do excision in the reproductive area, and not just have to do ablation. That obstetrics, they just focus on delivering babies and everything that comes with that. And to have like, so it's not, as a human, you can only have so much, right, in your brain. Um, so it's to separate the two specialties, it would just allow for got regular gynecologists to be trained properly on excision.
Yeah, we had a lot of the doctors that were delivering babies also doing the surgeries, but they wouldn't know to do excision. They would only do laparoscopy. But
Yep.
then eventually, as more years went by, a lot of them would know that there are doctors that know more about it, so they would send people to endo clinics instead. But now that's just become really difficult since they all have too many patients.
That's good they refer though, because that's like the biggest problem here is that the gynos are like, oh, let's do ablation. Oh yeah, then you would get another one in 3 months, and then another in another 3 months, and then you're like building
Wow.
scar
I can't
tissue.
believe they can operate every 3 months. That just seems like so much stress on the body.
It's
Wow.
it should be when you talk about this stuff, like it should be. It sounds like malpractice.
Yeah, that's what Dr. Vitale was saying when he was discussing this with me and how he has patients that have had like 20 surgeries and he's like it's ridiculous that the doctors would go in over and over again that it basically it almost was malpractice that it was so wrong that like it's just I can't believe it. I don't think that we have a lot of people in Canada to do that because the surgeries here are covered. So the government won't want to cover that many surgeries. Instead, what they do is like if you need the surgery, like not enough people are getting them that need them. But thank you for sharing all this. I know I've taken up so much of your time. I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I went on for so long.
Yeah, I could talk about this forever. I could never shut up about this.
We'll make sure to include like all your information for your website so that everyone will know where to find you
Yep.
because what you're doing is amazing. The group's called Excision for All, right?
Yep. Endo excision for all.
Endo Excision for All. Sorry. Sorry. Thank you.